The fluorescent lights of Savamart buzzed overhead as Maya Torres stood at the customer service counter, her 6-month-old son sleeping against her chest in a worn baby carrier. In her trembling hands, she held an unopened can of premium infant formula, the specialized kind that had cost her 3 days' worth of tips from the diner. "I need to return this," she said quietly to the teenager behind the counter. The boy looked up from his phone, barely masking his annoyance. "Receipt." Maya fumbled in her pocket, producing a crumpled piece of paper. Her fingers were raw from dishwater, nails chipped from endless shifts. At 24, she looked older. Exhaustion had a way of adding years. "It's unopened," she added, as if needing to justify herself. "My son. He can't tolerate regular formula. But Her voice cracked. "I can't afford this one right now. I'll come back when I get paid next week." The teenager scanned the item with mechanical indifference. "Store credit or original payment?" "Original, please." As the register beeped and whirred, Maya felt the weight of failure pressing down on her chest. Behind her, she heard the impatient shuffling of other customers. Someone sighed loudly. Her cheeks burned. Across the store, near the pharmacy section, stood Richard Montgomery, 40 years old, Chief Financial Officer of Montgomery Enterprises, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than Maya made in 3 months. He'd stopped in for emergency cold medicine, having spent another 18-hour day buried in acquisition reports. His daughter Sophie, age 7, tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" "Not tonight, princess. It's late." "But you always say that," Sophie pouted, her lower lip jutting out in that way that usually broke his resolve. Richard barely heard her. His eyes had caught on the young woman at the service desk, the way her shoulders curved inward, the protective way she held her baby, the quiet desperation in her voice that somehow carried across the store's ambient noise. He watched as she took the cash, a pathetically small amount, and shoved it deep into her jacket pocket as though afraid someone might snatch it away. Then she walked toward the exit, head down, moving quickly past the evening shoppers with their full carts and casual conversations. Something twisted in Richard's chest. A memory, sharp and unexpected. His own mother, 25 years ago, standing in a similar store, returning a birthday cake she couldn't afford because the electricity bill had come due. "Daddy." Sophie tugged harder. "Are you okay?" Richard looked down at his daughter. Her designer jacket, her new sneakers, the sparkly backpack she'd insisted on last week. Everything she wanted, she got. Not spoiled exactly, but never wanting. Never knowing what it meant to choose between food and medicine, between heat and rent. "Stay right here," he told Sophie, his voice distant. "Don't move." He walked quickly through the aisles, scanning, searching. Where had she gone? The automatic doors slid open, and cold November air rushed in. There, walking across the parking lot toward the bus stop, no car in sight, carrying a baby in weather that was dropping toward freezing. Richard's feet moved before his brain could overthink it. "Excuse me," he called out. "Miss." Maya turned, startled. Her arms instinctively tightened around her son. The man approaching her looked important, expensive, out of place. Her first thought was trouble. Had she forgotten to pay for something? Was the return flagged somehow? I'm sorry," she stammered. "Did I do something wrong?" Richard stopped a respectful distance away, suddenly uncertain. What was he doing? What was he going to say? No, nothing wrong. I just... He paused, choosing his words carefully. I saw you inside, returning the formula. Maya's face flushed with shame. I know it looks bad, but I'll buy it again next week. I always pay for what my son needs. This week was hard. I'm not judging you, Richard said quickly. Actually, I wanted to help. I don't need charity, Maya replied, her voice gaining an edge despite her exhaustion. Pride was sometimes all she had left. It's not charity. It's... Richard struggled. What was it? An impulse? Guilt? The ghost of his own mother's struggles? Look, I have a daughter. I know how expensive kids are. Let me buy the formula. Please, just let me help. Maya stared at him, searching his face for ulterior motives, for the catch she knew had to be coming. Why would you do that? You don't know me. No, I don't. But I know what it's like to be desperate. Maybe not recently, but I remember. And if I can make one person's night easier, why wouldn't I? Behind him, Sophie appeared, having ignored his instruction to stay put. Daddy, what are we doing? Richard turned. Sophie, I told you. Is that a baby? Sophie's eyes went wide with delight, moving closer to peer at the bundle in Maya's carrier. Oh my gosh, he's so tiny. What's his name? Maya found herself smiling despite everything. His name is Diego. Diego? Sophie repeated reverently, as if it were the most beautiful name she'd ever heard. Hi, Diego. I'm Sophie. She looked up at Maya with complete trust and innocence. Are you Diego's mommy? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like the video. Your comment means more than you think. It inspires me to keep creating stories that heal, teach, and move people. Is your mommy okay? Sophie asked her father with sudden concern. She looks sad. Richard's throat tightened. She's had a hard day, princess. Then we should help her, Sophie declared with the simple certainty of childhood. That's what you always tell me. When someone needs help, we help. Maya's eyes stung with unexpected tears. When had anyone last shown her this kind of simple kindness? When had anyone looked at her with concern instead of judgment? Please, Richard said again, more gently this time. Let me buy the formula. And anything else you need. No strings attached. You never have to see me again if you don't want to. Just let me do this. Maya looked at Diego, sleeping peacefully against her chest. She thought about the next 4 days before her paycheck, the nearly empty cupboards at home, the choice she'd have to make between feeding herself and feeding him. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. They walked back into Savamart together, an odd trio that drew curious glances. Richard grabbed a cart while Sophie chattered excitedly to Maya about her school, her friends, her new puppy. What else do you need? Richard asked as they reached the baby aisle. Maya hesitated. Just the formula. That's all. Are you sure? Diapers? Baby food? Anything? She wanted to say yes. She wanted to fill the cart with all the things Diego needed, all the things she could never quite afford. But accepting too much felt dangerous, like losing something essential about herself. Maybe some diapers, she admitted quietly. Sophie grabbed her father's hand. Daddy, she needs food too. Look how skinny she is. Sophie. Richard said sharply, embarrassed, but Maya laughed. A real laugh, surprising them all. She's not wrong, Maya said, the tension breaking slightly. I've lost some weight lately. Richard looked at her carefully. When did you last eat a real meal? Maya couldn't remember. I eat, she said defensively. That's not what I asked. They stood there in the bright aisle, strangers locked in a moment of raw honesty. Finally, Maya's shoulders sagged. Yesterday morning. Oatmeal. Richard's jaw tightened. He began moving through the store with purpose, adding items to the cart: fresh fruit, bread, peanut butter, pasta, sauce, chicken, vegetables. Maya protested weakly at first, then fell silent, too overwhelmed to fight. At the checkout, the total was staggering: $287.42. Richard pulled out his credit card without blinking. Maya watched the numbers on the screen, calculating how many weeks of tips that represented, how many hours of standing on aching feet. I can't pay you back, she said as they loaded bags into his car, because of course he'd insisted on driving her home. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Richard paused, one hand on the trunk. In the streetlight's glow, his face looked younger, more vulnerable. Maybe just to know that you'll be okay. That Diego will be okay. Sophie piped up from the back seat where she'd been playing peekaboo with the baby. Daddy, can Maya and Diego come to our house? It's warmer than the bus. Sophie, I'm sure they have somewhere to be. Actually, Maya interrupted. The next bus isn't for 40 minutes. If it's not too much trouble. That's how Maya found herself in the most beautiful house she'd ever seen. A renovated Victorian in the historic district, with crown molding and hardwood floors and more space than any 3 people could need. This is where you live? She breathed, standing in the foyer. It's too big, Richard admitted, hanging up his coat. I keep meaning to downsize, but Sophie loves it, and after her mother. He trailed off. Maya looked at him with new understanding. I'm sorry. 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry, Maya said again, meaning it deeply. Sophie had already taken off her shoes and was showing Diego her room, even though the baby was still sleeping. Maya followed, Richard trailing behind. The house was immaculate but somehow lonely. Everything in its place, nothing out of order, as if life had been carefully contained to avoid making a mess. You must have help, Maya observed. Cleaners, nanny? Cleaners twice a week. No nanny. I've tried, but Sophie doesn't take to strangers easily. Since her mom. He stopped again, that sentence never quite finishing. They ended up in the kitchen, Sophie insisting on making hot chocolate for their guest. As Maya sat at the granite island, cradling a warm mug, she realized how long it had been since she'd felt safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally, like she could let her guard down for a moment without everything falling apart. Can I ask you something? Richard said after Sophie had wandered off to find a toy to show Diego. Sure. What happened? How did you end up? He gestured vaguely, unable to find words that didn't sound judgmental. Maya took a breath. She didn't tell this story often. I was in nursing school, full scholarship, top of my class. Then I met Diego's father, charming, exciting, everything I wasn't. Got pregnant my junior year. She smiled bitterly. He promised he'd stay, help raise our son, that we'd figure it out together. 2 weeks after Diego was born, he emptied my savings account and disappeared. Richard's hands curled into fists. I tried to keep going: school, work, baby. But I couldn't do it all. Lost the scholarship when my grades dropped. Lost my apartment when I couldn't make rent. My parents. She shook her head. They made their opinion clear. Told me I'd made my bed. Now I had to lie in it. So here I am, lying in it. Where are you staying now? A women's shelter. It's actually okay, clean, safe. We have a room. I have a job at the diner down the street. Things could be worse. They could also be better, Richard said quietly. Maya met his eyes. Why do you care? Really? Richard was quiet for a long moment. My mother raised me alone. My father left before I was born. We were poor, government cheese, food stamps, the whole thing. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. Cleaning houses, waiting tables, whatever it took. His voice softened. When I was 7, I found her crying in the bathroom. She'd just returned a birthday cake she'd bought for me because the electric bill came, and she had to choose. She chose the lights. Oh, Maya breathed. I swore that day that when I grew up, I'd never let anyone I loved go without. I'd make enough money that no one would ever have to return a birthday cake or baby formula or anything else they desperately needed. He looked at her directly. But I forgot something along the way. I forgot that it's not about the money you make. It's about what you do with it. How you help. Until tonight, I think I'd stopped seeing people like you. People struggling, fighting, surviving. I just stopped seeing. Sophie reappeared, carrying an armful of stuffed animals. Diego needs friends, she announced. He can borrow these. Maya laughed, then to her surprise began crying. Not sad tears, but overwhelmed ones. The kind that come when you've been holding everything together for so long that the smallest kindness cracks you open. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm sorry, I don't know why. You're tired? Richard said simply. And there was so much understanding in those 2 words that Maya cried harder. Sophie climbed into the chair next to Maya and patted her arm. It's okay to cry. Daddy cries sometimes too. We just don't tell anyone. That made Maya laugh through her tears. Richard pulled tissues from a box and handed them over. Stay, he said suddenly. Tonight, we have 5 empty bedrooms. Stay here. Let Diego sleep somewhere warm. Let yourself sleep without worrying. No expectations, no strings. Just rest. Maya wanted to refuse. Should refuse. But she was so tired, and Diego deserved better than a shelter cot. And this man was offering something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Okay, she whispered. Just for tonight. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through curtains that probably cost more than her monthly wages. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back. The store, the return, the stranger who'd changed her night. Diego lay in a portable crib beside the bed, still sleeping peacefully. Someone, Richard, she assumed, had brought in all of Diego's things from the bags and set up a comfortable space. When she finally ventured downstairs, she found Sophie at the kitchen table, carefully preparing a bottle of formula. I wanted to help, Sophie explained seriously. Daddy's making pancakes. Do you like pancakes? I love pancakes, Maya said, her heart swelling at the sight of this little girl who'd adopted them so completely. Richard turned from the stove, spatula in hand. Morning. Sleep okay. Better than I have in months, Maya admitted. Thank you for everything. Over breakfast, fluffy pancakes with real maple syrup, they talked more easily. Sophie dominated the conversation, telling elaborate stories about her school friends, while Maya and Richard exchanged glances that held an entire conversation of their own. Eventually, Reality intruded. Maya needed to get to her shift at the diner. Richard offered to drive her. In the car, he said, "I've been thinking about something." "That sounds dangerous," Maya teased gently. "I have a business proposal." "Not charity," he added quickly as she started to tense. "A real job." "Richard, I don't have skills for whatever you do. I need help with Sophie. Not a nanny, she hates nannies. But someone who could be there when I'm working late. Someone who could make her feel safe, cared for. Someone like you." Maya stared at him. "You just met me yesterday." "I know. And normally I'd never suggest this. I do background checks, interviews, references. But Sophie trusts you, and He paused. "I trust my daughter's instincts. She hasn't let anyone close since her mother died. Until you. I don't know anything about being a nanny. You're a mother. That's more qualified than any certification." He named a salary that made Maya's head spin. "Plus room and board if you want it. The guest house above the garage is empty. You'd have privacy, space for Diego. Separate entrance." "This is crazy," Maya whispered. "Probably, but I'm good at calculated risks. And something tells me this is the right one." Maya thought about the shelter, about her efficiency apartment dreams, about Diego growing up without stability. She thought about Sophie's small hand in hers, about Richard's understanding eyes. "Let me try it," she said. 2 weeks. Trial period. If it doesn't work, I'll leave. No hard feelings." Richard smiled. "Deal." The 2-week trial turned into 2 months, then 6. Maya moved into the guest house with Diego, creating the first real home they'd ever had. She'd wake up early, prepare breakfast, get Sophie ready for school while Richard handled morning calls and emails. During the day, while Sophie was at school and Richard at the office, Maya took classes online, picking up where she'd left off, working toward her nursing degree 1 credit at a time. Richard had offered to pay for it, but she'd insisted on doing it herself, using her salary. When Sophie came home, Maya would help with homework, make snacks, play elaborate make-believe games. Diego grew bigger, started crawling, then walking. Sophie treated him like a little brother, reading him books and sharing toys. Evenings became sacred. The 4 of them would have dinner together. Richard cooking, he discovered a passion for it. Maya helping, the children playing nearby. They'd watch movies, do puzzles, talk about their days. Slowly, imperceptibly, they stopped being employer and employee. They became something else. Something neither wanted to name but both felt. Richard noticed how Maya laughed at his terrible jokes, how she hummed while doing dishes, how she'd squeeze his shoulder when passing, a casual touch that made his whole day brighter. Maya noticed how Richard's eyes crinkled when he smiled, how he'd leave her favorite coffee in the guesthouse kitchen every morning, how he looked at Diego with the same tender concern he showed Sophie. They were falling in love, and it terrified both of them. One evening, after the children were asleep, Richard found Maya on the guesthouse porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching stars. "Mind if I join you?" "It's your house," she said, but scooted over to make room. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Richard said, "I need to tell you something." Maya's stomach dropped. "Are you letting me go?" "What? No. God, no." He took a breath. "I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the cool night air. Maya's heart hammered. "Richard, I know. It's complicated. You work for me. You live here. It's messy and inappropriate and probably a dozen kinds of wrong. But I can't help it. These past 6 months, you've brought life back into this house. Sophie laughs again. I laugh again. You've made us whole. I love you too, Maya said softly. I've been trying not to. I've been telling myself it's just gratitude or proximity or the fact that you saved me. But it's not. It's you. The way you are with Sophie, with Diego. The way you see me not as a charity case or a sob story, but as a person. I love you. Richard reached for her hand. So what do we do? I don't know. Take it slow? See where it goes. I'm good at slow, Richard said. Then he kissed her, gentle and sweet, under the stars. For 3 beautiful months, they navigated their new reality. To the outside world, nothing had changed. But in private moments, after the children slept, in stolen glances across the dinner table, they were building something precious. Then came the party. Richard's company was hosting a charity gala, and he needed to attend. Come with me, he'd asked Maya. As my date. She'd hesitated. People will talk. Let them. So Maya bought a dress, the first formal gown she'd ever owned, and walked into that ballroom on Richard's arm, feeling like Cinderella. The evening was magical until Richard's business partner, Gerald Watson, cornered them by the bar. So this is your nanny, Gerald said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The one you've been spending so much time with. Maya is much more than that, Richard said coolly. I'm sure she is. Gerald's tone made it sound dirty. Richard, can I speak with you privately? Away from Maya, Gerald laid it out bluntly. You're making a mistake. Getting involved with an employee, especially one with her background, it looks bad. For you, for the company. Her background. Come on. Young single mother, probably looking for a meal ticket. She saw you coming a mile away. Richard's jaw clenched. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I've seen this story before. She's got you wrapped around her finger. How long before she starts asking for more? Maybe claims harassment. Sues for a settlement. That's enough. I'm trying to protect you. What about Sophie? You're letting some girl with a baby play house with your daughter. What happens when she leaves? When she gets bored or finds a better opportunity? She's not going anywhere. And if anyone's leaving, it'll be you if you keep talking about her like that. But the damage was done. The words burrowed into Richard's mind, awakening old fears and doubts. That night, driving home, he was quiet. What's wrong? Maya asked. Nothing. Richard. He pulled into the driveway but didn't turn off the car. Gerald said some things. About us. What kind of things? He couldn't repeat them. Just. He questioned my judgment. Maya's face went carefully neutral. He thinks I'm using you. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Richard, if you're having doubts. I'm not. You sound like you are. They stared at each other across the dark car. Everything that had felt sure suddenly felt fragile. Maybe Gerald's right, Richard said quietly. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe. Maybe I should go, Maya finished. Is that what you want? No. Yes. I don't know. He gripped the steering wheel. I need to think about Sophie. What's best for her. And you think I'm not? I think I can't afford to make mistakes with my daughter. The words were a knife. Maya opened the car door. Then I'll make it easy for you. I'll leave. Maya. No. You're right. This was always going to end. I was kidding myself thinking I could have this. The house, the family, the life. Girls like me don't get fairy tales. She walked to the guest house without looking back. Richard sat in the car, hands shaking, wondering what he'd just done. Maya packed that night. By morning, she and Diego were gone. Moved back to a small apartment, taking a night shift at a hospital to make ends meet. She left a note for Sophie. I have to go, but I'll always love you. Be brave, be kind. Love, Maya. Sophie was devastated. She cried for 3 days straight, refused to eat, stopped talking. Richard tried everything. Toys, treats, promises, but nothing worked. Where's Maya? Sophie would ask. Why did she leave? Did I do something wrong? No, princess. It's not your fault. Then bring her back. But pride and fear kept Richard frozen. What if Gerald was right? What if he was making a terrible mistake? It was Sophie who finally broke through. On the 7th night, she climbed into Richard's bed at 2 a.m., eyes red from crying. Daddy. Yeah, princess. Do you love Maya? Richard's throat closed. Yes. Then why did you let her go? It's complicated. No, it's not. Sophie's voice was fierce. Mommy used to say love is simple. It's people who make it complicated. If you love Maya, and she loves us, then we should be together. That's what family is. Out of the mouths of babes. Richard looked at his daughter. Wise beyond her years, brave beyond her heartbreak. When had she become so strong? You're right, he whispered. You're absolutely right. The next morning, Richard called in sick to work for the first time in his career. He looked up Maya's new address, which wasn't hard. He still did her payroll, and drove across town to a rundown building that made his heart ache. He knocked on apartment 3B. Maya opened the door in scrubs, clearly about to leave for her shift. Her eyes widened. Richard, don't go to work. Please, just give me 5 minutes. I can't afford to miss a shift. I'll pay whatever you would have made. Please. Diego appeared behind Maya, wobbling on unsteady feet. When he saw Richard, his face lit up. Dada, he gurgled. Richard's heart stopped. Did he just? He's been doing that for 2 days, Maya said quietly. I couldn't correct him. Richard knelt down. Diego launched himself forward, and Richard caught him, holding the baby close. Tears streamed down his face. I was wrong, he told Maya. I let fear win. I let other people's doubts become my doubts. But Sophie said something last night that made me realize. Love is simple. We're the ones who make it complicated. Richard, I love you. I love you, and I love Diego, and I want you both in our lives permanently. Not as an employee, not as some arrangement, as family. He stood, still holding Diego. Marry me, Maya. Please, let us be the family we were always meant to be. Maya was crying now. You really mean it? I've never meant anything more. What about Gerald? What about what people will say? I don't care. I spent 3 years after my wife died just existing, going through the motions. Then you came into our lives and reminded me what living feels like. I'm not giving that up. Not for Gerald. Not for anyone. Maya launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around both Richard and Diego. Yes, yes, I'll marry you. They kissed there in the doorway of that tiny apartment. Diego squished between them, giggling at his parents. The photographer adjusted her lens. Okay, everyone together now. Big smiles. Maya stood with Richard on one side, Sophie, now 12 and starting to look like a young woman, on the other. Diego, age 5, sat in front, holding the hand of his baby sister, 3-year-old Grace. They were standing in front of the newly opened Torres Montgomery Family Health Center, a clinic Maya had founded with Richard's support, offering free health care to families in need. "How does it feel?" the reporter asked Maya after the photo op. Maya looked at her family, her husband of 4 years, the daughter she'd gained, the son who'd given her the strength to keep going, the baby who'd been the final piece of their puzzle. "It feels like coming home," she said simply. That evening, after the celebration, after the children were asleep, Richard found Maya in their bedroom, holding that old can of formula, the one he'd insisted she keep as a reminder. "Why do you still have that?" he asked. "Because it reminds me that the worst moment of my life led to the best. That sometimes when we're returning something we desperately need, we're actually making space for something we never dreamed we could have." Richard pulled her close. "I love you. I love you too. Thank you for seeing me that night, for not looking away. Thank you for letting me help, for teaching me that having money means nothing if you don't use it to make the world better. You changed my life, Maya. We changed each other's." Downstairs, Sophie was supposed to be asleep but was instead reading by flashlight, working on her essay for school. My hero, Maya Torres Montgomery, the woman who taught us love has no price tag. In his room, Diego slept peacefully, a stuffed tiger clutched to his chest, a gift from his first day in the big house 5 years ago. And baby Grace dreamed baby dreams, unaware that she was born into a family built not by blood alone, but by choice, by courage, by the simple act of one person refusing to look away from another person's struggle. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. A can of formula, a warm meal, a place to rest. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, those small acts grow into something beautiful. A family, a future, a love that transforms everyone it touches. Remember, kindness costs nothing but means everything. The next time you see someone struggling, don't look away. Be the person who sees. Be the person who helps. Be the person who changes everything.